Just when you think the bad news surrounding Disney's Star Wars is finally behind us, another shocking report surfaces. This latest news puts Disney, Lucasfilm, and the entire Star Wars franchise in a really tough position. It feels like a never-ending roller coaster ride that just won't stop. Multiple reports are now suggesting that the highly debated Rey Star Wars movie might be canceled, or at the very least, delayed due to various production issues. Many believe this is just the first indication that the movie may never see the light of day, similar to the troubled production of the MCU's Blade. With so many problems and delays cropping up, it feels increasingly unlikely that this film will actually make it to theaters. It's become quite difficult to find even the most passionate and optimistic Star Wars fans excited about this upcoming film. Most are left asking, why is Rey returning? After all, her last movie was a major disappointment, receiving negative feedback from critics and struggling at the box office. Fans were divided, and the last installment was especially controversial. With all this uncertainty, it's hard to see a bright future for the franchise. On top of the troubling news about the Rey Star Wars movie, many are suggesting that Kathleen Kennedy might be parting ways with Lucasfilm. Just a month ago, she hinted at this herself, saying she's looking to leave but only on a high note. However, with The Acolyte flopping and Skeleton Crew generating zero excitement, fans are left wondering where this elusive win is going to come from. When we take a step back and look at the situation objectively, it makes sense for Lucasfilm to consider moving on from Kathleen Kennedy. After all, it appears that no significant success is on the horizon. Recently, almost everything they've produced has failed at the box office. It's interesting to note that when Kathleen Kennedy's name comes up, people tend to have strong opinions. Some despise her leadership, while others defend her fiercely. This division among fans adds another layer of complexity to an already challenging situation for Lucasfilm. As the franchise struggles to find its footing, the question remains, can Kathleen Kennedy really turn things around, or is it time for a change in leadership? To create the best video possible and truly understand the tough situation Lucasfilm is facing, it's important to look at things objectively. Let's examine how many wins Kathleen Kennedy has had as president compared to her losses. Running a movie studio is a lot like being a sports coach. You need to win more than you lose to keep your position. This is precisely why Warner Brothers recently let go of their studio head, and DC Studios did the same, because they were losing more often than winning. In the entertainment industry, a win is when a movie makes money, and a loss is when it doesn't. Keeping this in mind, I thought it would be interesting to calculate Kathleen Kennedy's win-to-loss ratio. I'll focus solely on movies since the shows they produce go straight to Disney+. We all know that this model is aimed at boosting the streaming service's market value rather than putting real money in Lucasfilm's pockets. They generate revenue primarily through their movies at the box office, so that's where our focus will be. Let's dive in and see just how well, or poorly, Kathleen Kennedy has performed in her role. Let's take a closer look at how many Lucasfilm movies under Kathleen Kennedy have been profitable and how many have lost money. The first major project under her leadership was Star Wars: The Force Awakens, which made a staggering $2 billion at the box office. To be fair, it was the grand return of Star Wars, so even if it had been 2 hours of George Lucas doing nothing on screen, it likely still would have made billions. But regardless, it was a massive success, giving Kathleen Kennedy 1 win and 0 losses. Next up was Rogue One. While this movie grossed $1 billion at the box office, it was also one of the most expensive films ever made, with a production budget of $280 million. After factoring in marketing costs, the movie needed around $550 million just to break even. Considering theaters typically take about half of the box office revenue, Rogue One actually ended up losing roughly $50 million at the box office. So, now Kathleen Kennedy stands at 1 win and 1 loss. As you can see, the path ahead becomes a little less certain. Let's keep counting the wins and losses to see how things stack up for her overall. After Rogue One came The Last Jedi, which brought in a healthy profit of around $300 to $400 million for Lucasfilm. This gave Kathleen Kennedy a total of 2 wins and 1 loss. However, things quickly took a turn for the worse with Solo. That film was a major box office failure, losing Lucasfilm hundreds of millions of dollars, which leveled Kennedy's record to 2 wins and 2 losses. At this point, she was only succeeding 50% of the time. Following the disastrous release of Solo, Lucasfilm experienced its biggest flop yet with The Rise of Skywalker. The film needed to make $800 million to break even. but after the theater's 50% cut, it ended up losing an additional $300 million. It wasn't just a financial disaster either, it was a critical flop too. This pushed Kathleen Kennedy's record to 2 wins and 3 losses, officially tipping her towards failure. After a brief hiatus with no new films for a few years, Indiana Jones 5 came out, and it was another massive box office flop. At this point, she's at 2 wins and 4 losses, with only a 30% success rate. The profits from her successes are far outweighed by the massive financial failures, with Lucasfilm losing hundreds of millions on these flops. While I originally intended to focus only on movies, it's worth mentioning The Acolyte, which has been so divisive that it could impact future films' success rates. Right now, Lucasfilm is in a deeply troubling position, and Kathleen Kennedy, as its leader, is clearly failing more than she is succeeding, by a significant margin. By looking at the hard numbers, without any emotional opinions, it becomes clear that if the Rey Star Wars movie faces another failure or serious delay, Disney will have no choice but to make some big changes at Lucasfilm, and I believe Kathleen Kennedy will be a part of those changes. But this raises a big question. What will Disney and Lucasfilm do after potentially canceling the Rey movie and parting ways with Kennedy? How can they turn things around and start winning again? Honestly, I think they'll need to step back for a few years to figure out the next steps. Unlike Marvel's peak years from 2010 to 2019, Star Wars has struggled to find its magic, but it can reach those same heights again, generating hype around its characters and universe. What Star Wars needs now is a fresh storytelling approach, with characters that people can truly connect with and find inspiring. The stories need to feel grounded and full of real emotion. Right now, the franchise lacks a clear voice. You can see this in how different The Acolyte is from Ahsoka, and how different Skeleton Crew was going to be. And then, there's the puzzling decision to bring Rey back. It just seems so random and unplanned. They are all over the place, and it's making things confusing for the fans. That's why I believe Lucasfilm needs a few years to build a strong, clear vision, a world that can unfold over the next 8 to 12 years. It's not going to be easy, but it's their only chance at real success. And to do this, they'll need fresh minds and new ideas. A complete shakeup is necessary, which is why I believe Kathleen Kennedy's time at Lucasfilm is coming to an end. What are your thoughts on this situation? Let me know down below in the comments. If you liked the video, please hit the like button and subscribe.